26 seconds. 26 seconds.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here, and thank you for inviting me. I honor what you guys do, bringing awareness to help women like me. When I was 13 years old, I met a lady going to work. When I met this woman at this liquor store, every day when I go to school, almost every day she'd be there. Eventually we became friends. I started opening up to her about the abuse that was going on at home, and one day she told me if I ever needed somewhere to go to just let her know. Well, lo and behold, that day came, and I told her I didn't want to go back home because I thought my brother was going to kill me one day. So she put me in a motel, and for 3 days took me to the movies, bought me clothes, bought me food, treated me like a princess. On the third day, a man came into the hotel room, told me I now owed them for everything she'd paid for me. They beat me, blindfolded me, and took me to Palm Desert, where for 9 months I was held captive and sold on a daily basis. But there were kids there from ages 3 or 4 to about 23. There were like 12 of us. And I'm sure there's parents still looking for those kids.
Myself, I retired after 30 years as a police officer 14 years ago. Our mission is to identify, locate, and then recover a victim who's we call in the life. A trafficker can be anybody. A mom, a dad, a grandma, grandpa, I mean, we've seen it all.
9 months had passed, and they came and took me, said they were taking me for a ride, and I knew in my heart they were taking me to kill me. And as we're driving, and I was in the back of this vehicle, I heard this voice just tell me to jump out of the car on the freeway. And I remember just arguing with myself, saying, I can't jump out of the vehicle, I'll die. And the voice told me, you'll die if you don't. And mind you, it was like 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and there wasn't a lot of traffic, but when I jumped out of the car, luckily I didn't break anything, but my back was torn to shreds, and the car was coming back to get me, and a taxi out of nowhere just showed up, saw me fall out of the car and stopped to help, which made the people take off. I'd like to say that that was the end of my trauma and my life being, in bondage, but I held bondage not only physically but mentally for like a good 15-20 years. Back then, if you were a prostitute, you were put in jail. You weren't treated as a victim. Never do they say, oh, why are you doing what you're doing? Let us get you help. That didn't happen back then.
I was this person at 13 years old out on Harbor Boulevard at 3 in the morning, prostituting herself. But see, that's the thing. She wasn't prostituting herself. She was being forced by a trafficker. And that's what we didn't connect those dots until about 2000. That's when things started changing, about 2000. This is not a prostitute. This is a victim of human trafficking.
I was in and out, institutionalized. By now I'm so traumatized that I won't even go home, because then I have to be re-victimized by my brother. I end up on the streets of Los Angeles, where now I know how to hustle and make money, and little by little I got myself out there, and I just started working the streets to support my drug habit.
I'm a former John, so I used to buy women in my teens and my 20s addicted to methamphetamine. I did heroin with a prostitute using her needle in the red light district in Bakersfield. I got radically filled with the Holy Spirit 15 years ago. God met me through a man, prophesied over me I'd be a pastor to prostitutes, bikers, and drug dealers, and a year later we launched Magdalene Hope. We're in our 10th year now. So I went from buying women to rescuing them out sex trafficking. So we work with women in the commercial sex industry so that we define commercial sex as prostitution, human trafficking, pornography, and stripping. And so our shelter offers services to any one of the women coming out of those 4 categories. So we have a shelter in Bakersfield, it's called Restoration Ranch Women's Shelter. And we've been able to assist 116 women to freedom. So we've gotten them out, we've extracted them, gotten them to freedom.
I praise God for you men that step up. And I'm so proud of you to take something so ugly, just like me, my ashes and my filth, and turn it around for the glory of God. Thank you. You know, I thought I wasn't hurting anybody out there, but I hurt families, I hurt marriages, I hurt myself. You know, it's time that we start restoring these women back to health.
So we work with different domestic violence and sexual assault shelters, see if she really wants help long term, and then we bring them in and we help them. So we do outreach in Bakersfield, and we're here in Orange County. So we filled a pool here, working with Kelly, and we started finding out about the girls who were sold around Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm. We drive a big pink van, and we hand out backpacks. So Kelly gives out bracelets, we give out backpacks, and the backpack contains anything that a girl would need over the course of a weekend while she is sold. And so we also have the human trafficking hotline number printed on our backpack and our card inside. So if a girl wants help, she can make the phone call.
So we have women who volunteers, we call advocates, and they make contact with the victims between midnight and 4 in the morning on Harbor Boulevard. If the victim is interested in getting out, then we will establish a exit strategy right there on the spot. We have a team already set up, they're already on the track, and so we have teams already on the track, ready to roll, and we do a swoop in, pick her up, and then take her to a recovery location where she'll get resources and help.
Refuge for Women is a national organization based in Kentucky. We have 6 homes. We're very fortunate that we have opened our first transitional living home in Las Vegas. So one of the locations, we have Kentucky, Las Vegas, North Texas, Ohio, and then Chicago. The first 3 months was completely focused on the healing, and the healing piece doesn't finish after 3 months.
When these women are taken off the streets, it's about rewiring their brain to think differently, to understand that they have the power. I had a friend come up to me and say, Melissa, you need to get some of your power back. I'm gonna pay for you to go to school. I'm like, you are? I'm gonna pay for all your books and make sure you get through it. And I'm like, I can't do that. They're like, no, you can do it. So I went back to college, and I had a 3.8 grade GPA. And it was empowering. I did that. You know, these women that were refugees taken in is gonna have to re-educate these women, not only socially, physically, but mentally.
In California in 2017, there was a bill that passed that allowed prevention to be taught in our schools here in California. And if you ask me, how many school districts have implemented that since 2017, Brenda?
No.
How many?
No, not bad.
0.
I figured.
0, you're right, 0. What we can do is go to each one of our school districts, we can talk, we can raise that flag and say, you know what, we want this to be implemented. So we can do that today. We can start there. The second thing is, thankfully, we know that there's a bill trying to pass right now for the decriminalization of prostitution. We know that, you know, as much as there are victims' rights or sex workers' rights groups that are trying to pass this, it is not those groups that really want this to pass. It is the ones that want to increase the demand, that want to increase the revenue from trafficking, that are really trying to push this. And the thing that we can do is we can write to each one of our congressmen, we can write to our local politicians to say, no, we are standing against this because this is not going to help any of these victims.
Anytime there's legalized prostitution, there's always an increase of human trafficking because, man, the traffickers just swoop those girls up that are willing to work and they start having to work for them. The average age that a girl or an individual enters into human trafficking, sex trafficking, is 11 to 13 years old.
You cannot stop this until you deal with the root cause, and the root cause is demand. As long as there's demand, there's going to be victims of human trafficking. If we did away with the demand, there would be no victims. There'd be no trafficker to pimp the victim, because there'd be no demand for it.
What we need to do is we need to take these guys and fingerprint them, take their picture, lock them up overnight, maybe a 72-hour hold, impound the car if they're using the car to approach a girl. And that's hard to explain away to your wife, to your boss, as to why you didn't show up for 48 hours or 72 hours. And roll them through the process. That is gonna hit home. Right now it's a ticket. Here you go, don't do that again. It's like jaywalking.
So if an adult has sex with a minor, they're not getting a ticket and release. They're going to prison. They're going to jail to be arraigned and then sentenced to prison. So I don't want you to think that they're going to get a ticket and let go. That's if they're dealing with an adult on adult. If it's a minor, you don't have to prove anything except they're a minor. Dude, you're going to jail.
So I want to thank you so much because you really are our future and you're our hope. I hope it was informative. I specifically, again, my project, I'm focusing on the nonprofits that are working in prevention, rescue, restoration, and reintegration. So thank you so much for being interested in this and being interested in people, because really at the end of the day, people matter most.